And welcome back to the AWA 1990 project. I'm your host, Alex G, and with me, as always, is Matt Riley. What's going on, Matt?
The usual. Mayhem, anarchy.
Sounds like an AWA show, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're right.
So, guys, on this episode, we're going to talk about our first fantasy book pay-per-view, which the main event of that will be Ricky the Dragon Steamboat taking on Bam Bam Bigelow for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. In addition to that, we're going to talk about, I guess you would call it a hidden gem. We're going to talk about Starcage 85. That's right, Starcage 85, not Starcade 85, Starcage 85 from the AWA. So that's going to be interesting and fun. But first, we're going to talk about Bam Bam Bigelow taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Again, if you've been watching the show, you know that we have Ricky Steamboat. He's in our top spot. He is the heavyweight champion of the world. His first big title defense will be against Bam Bam Bigelow, who recently injured and put out of commission Vic Steamboat, Ricky Steamboat's brother. He also defeated Keiji Muto to earn a shot at the world title. Now, for me, looking on at least on paper, and again, this will be from St. Paul, Minnesota. This will be a pay-per-view type show. I don't necessarily expect it to do well, but again, it gets all the particulars over so we can start drawing in the future. So on this card, you're going to see such matches as Terry Funk taking on Cactus Jack and a barbed wire match. Again, we're trying to be different than everyone else. We're going to have the Guerreros taking on Tully Blanchard and Blue Demon Jr. That's going to be fun. Larry Cameron's on the show. He takes on Paul Diamond. We have the Road Warriors taking on the Destruction Crew. And then we have our main event of Ricky Steamboat taking on Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, for me, and one of the reasons why I picked Bigelow here is that he can have a really good athletic match with Steamboat, I feel. I haven't really seen any matches or interactions between Steamboat and Bam Bam before, knowing the way Bam Bam works. So I think based on Bam Bam's skills, he can have a really good match with Ricky Steamboat. Again, we have all the heat on Bam Bam injuring Vic Steamboat. And you also have Diamond Dallas Page on the outside trying to get heat. So I think that will be a first good title defense. Obviously, Steamboat's going to get the win here for sure. And then, Bam Bam will still be in the main event scene for a while. But again, we're trying to bring everyone back home. We're going to try to, work from Minneapolis and work outwards as we expand out from Minneapolis into the rest of the Midwest. Now, I don't know if this will be a pay-per-view or a special on ESPN or just a closed circuit event, but I think it should do well. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on the matchup between Ricky Steamboat and Bam Bam Bigelow?
Well, Steamboat's got the skills to make Bam Bam look great. Bam Bam can hold his own too, so I think it should be a good matchup that way. Ricky selling the hell out of it and establishing himself as the top champion, really, conquering that mountain. And Bam Bam can take a loss and still be, a dangerous threat. I think it's such a stigma, like, oh, if you lose, that's it. It's like, no.
Again, we're going to do stuff with Bam Bam moving forward that's going to keep him in that top spot. He's not going to be on opening matches after this loss.
Right.
But we have to get Steamboat over and we have to give him monsters to slay. That's his job, to slay the monsters. And we'll go through a couple different monsters. Again, there's different types of title defenses, title angles that I'm going to use. And I think the big one's going to be for the next pay-per-view that we're going to do, that we're going to set up. It's going to be very different because you want to have some contrast in terms of your angle. So you want to have your big monster, then you want to have, your more, your wrestler's wrestler, as a heel going against Steamboat, and we can do interesting things in between having Steamboat fight these monsters. So the next opponent, which I'll mention on the next show, has been decided, and we'll go through some of the angles there as we move forward. I think Tully Blanchard and the Blue Demon. I think Blue Demon is a better fit for what we want to do in 1990 versus getting in and dusting off a Mil Mascaras and bringing him to Minneapolis. But if we're doing like this kind of lucha style feud with Tully getting all the heat. And I don't know if you guys saw the Tully Blanchard promo recently with Sean Spears. You know, Tully cuts a hell of a promo, and he's going against the Guerreros, and that's something that's very familiar. And obviously having Eddie and Hector there, they're going to have really great matches, and they can do the lucha stuff with Blue Demon, and they can do more traditional Texas-style wrestling with Tully Blanchard. As we try to get all four of these guys over, because we do have big plans for them going forward. We have Larry Cameron on the show. He's going against Paul Diamond. Paul Diamond is an excellent worker. He can probably get the most out of Larry Cameron here, and Larry has a great look, and he's a potential star for the future. And then in terms of Cactus Jack taking on Terry Funk, we want to do something different. Again, WWF is very cartoony at this time. WCW is doing shit with like RoboCop, and we want to have a stark contrast. So having Cactus Jack and Terry Funk in a barbed wire match, it really escalates the violence to a next level. And it's something that, you know, the people of Minneapolis and the Midwest may have not seen a whole lot of, especially when it comes to Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. And the promos leading into that would be fucking amazing. Right off the bat. Again, we have this rivalry with Cactus Jack and Norman the Lunatic and Scott Norton and Terry Funk. So I think overall the show will be a solid entry, a nice first effort as we move along, and as the angles become more heated and the storylines become more complicated as we go down the road, as we try to maybe not necessarily compete with the WWF, but carve a niche and expand from there. So when it comes to big events, Starcage, 1985. Not so much a hidden gem, maybe a hidden turd. Again, this is not on the WWE Network. They only have the main event on YouTube. It's kind of a show that's kind of hard to find. I do have it. I'd actually send it over to Matt so that you could actually watch it, because there's no way otherwise to see this match. So it's not necessarily available on YouTube, but you can see the main event on there if you want to get a feel for what the show is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, Ken Resnick back with you live from the St. Paul Civic Center. Tonight's Starcage 85. Of course, the one a lot of people have been talking about. Vern Gagne, Greg Gagne, teaming together against Nick Bockwinkel, Mr. Saito. But in addition, later on this evening, this ring will be encompassed in a 12-foot-high steel cage. Perhaps the most dangerous of all. His partner, perhaps one of the most well-known professional wrestlers throughout the world today, 305 pounds out of Parris Island, South Carolina, Sergeant Slaughter. They will be facing the team of Sheikh Adnan El Casey, the Masked Superstar, and King Tonga. Now we're just about ready. Tonight's first bout coming up. It will pit the team of the Alaskans, Rick Renslow and Dave Wagner, against a new but a very popular tag team, Steve Olsenowski and his partner, Tom Zink.
Again, at this time, it's 1985 AWA. You got Rick Martel as your world champion, not on their show for whatever reason. They're still doing well in terms of business. Business has not subsided yet. So the crowds are still there. The crowds are still very hot. And when we look at the show and we look at the matches, there's still a lot of talent on this show. Now, and maybe not as deep as they have been in the past, but when you have a show that has, such luminaries as, Sergeant Slaughter and Larry Zbyszko and Bob Backlund and Jerry Blackwell and Masked Superstar and King Tonga and the Road Warriors and Kurt Hennig and Jimmy Garvin, the show probably should have been better, and it probably... it still looks like shit. But again, it's 1985. It's like WrestleMania 1 looks like shit. So what we have here, this was shown on Minnesota cable. It's not necessarily known if any other markets had aired this card outside of Minnesota. It's April 21st, 1985. There's no attendance listed, but this was from the St. Paul Civic Center. We have Ken Resnick and Doug McLeod on commentary. Doug McLeod is the Minnesota-based sports announcer. who had a 30-year plus career. I guess he was like sort of a Bob Uecker kind of ripoff here. I guess that was the idea. In our first match, we have Steve O and Tom Zenk taking on the Alaskans of Dave Wagner and Ken Renslow. Again, production on this show is bad. You can hear Resnick talking over the mic. You get a rambling promo from Vern that kind of makes no sense.
Ever, and I've always made my own decisions and that sort of thing. They were shocked, and of course the words that came out. I mean, are you in your right mind? That was the first one, and I certainly was. And after they saw and I explained what happened here, they're very apprehensive, but I think they're certainly behind me, without a doubt. No doubt about that.
All right, well, Vern, all we can say is the entire state of Minnesota, myself, all the best tonight. Good luck to you and Greg, and it should be one heck of a wrestling match.
Yes, it's going to be. I promise you that.
All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with more live from the St. Paul Civic Center right after this.
Again, this is Vern's return from his retirement, I guess, which will be a theme. You know, wrestlers don't really retire anyway, but Vern is back, and the crowd, to Vern's credit, was really happy to see him. In his first match, it's essentially, you know, the heels beating up the baby faces. The baby faces get the comeback and with the win here. Nice to see Steve O and Tom Zenk, Pat Patterson's favorite wrestler, on the card here. So that's nice to see. So Matt, what are your thoughts on Steve O and Tom Zenk taking on the Alaskans?
I think my favorite part of it was
11 minutes this went.
Yeah, well, you know, the Alaskans are tough guys. Almost as tough as El Hombre, but I think my favorite part of the match was right afterwards when Tom Zenk was gassed and he's trying to talk to him like, let the dude catch his breath.
Should Tom Zenk been a bigger star? Like if Tom Zenk was around today, like if Tom Zenk debuted in like 2016, would he be a bigger star?
I think the mental, I want to say, the personality and whatever it was about him that was the inner demons, if you want to call it that.
He had a good look. He's good in the ring.
Yeah, there's lots of guys, especially nowadays, the guys that look good and can do all the right moves. But I don't know if Zenk, he is like a product of the time. Like he's a athletic guy. He's got some muscles. He's got the hair. You know, he's a good babyface, but you know, can he pull it off when he gets into a front of a big crowd? You know, like a big nationwide audience.
Like WrestleMania 3, 93,000 people.
Yeah, I mean that was a good.
Like
show.
they were him and Martel. Like they were destined for a push. Yeah, the rest of that push went to Strikeforce anyway.
Yeah.
Because Zenk left the WWF for reasons.
Right.
But like I wonder if we felt that was a mistake because he would have been one half of the World Tag Team Champions and he would have had Tito Spada feuding with Martel forever. And, you know, he wouldn't get much higher than mid-card babyface for the length of his career. You know, he had that one run with Pillman as U.S. Tag Team Champions. He had, like, a feud with the Diamond Stud. He had Missy Hyatt chasing him around, trying to see his dick. You know, like, that's what he did for the extent of his career in WCW and didn't do much, you know, outside of that. Yeah. Unfortunately, now he passed away not too long ago. But I thought, you know, if you're a good booker, you can find something interesting for Tom Zenk to do. Steve-O, I think we all love Steve-O. And the Alaskans, I don't know which version of the Alaskans these are, but again, super tough guys.
All right, now, fans, with me, as you can see, Steve Olszanowski and Tom Zenk. Tom, congratulations, Steve. Great win. Now, this is the first time we've seen you two together, but Tom, you exhibited a great amount of teamwork in there.
Thank you very much, Ken. Steve and I have been working a little bit. It's the first time here in the Civic Center. We're working as a team, and things really clicked tonight. We felt real good, and I'm sure Steve did, too.
I'll tell you, it had to feel good. There was no doubt about the crowd was certainly behind you two.
Yes, if it wasn't for the fans behind us, we'd had a little harder time, but the people were great here. They're behind us all the way, and we gave it 120%.
All right, Tom, I'll give you a second to catch your breath. Steve, we were beginning to get a little worried. You took quite a beating in there before you could get over and tag off to get a rest.
Well, you know, that's the difference between a winner and a loser, how much punishment you can take. Whether the loser can come back to hit the big home run or come back to make the big run for the touchdown. It just so happened that tonight, here in the Civic Center, what a heck of a crowd we got here. Tonight was our night. I tell you, I wasn't going to let Tom down, and I wasn't going to let all these people down out there because they were behind us. And it's a great feeling for Tom and I. If we can just keep this on the roll, you're going to be hearing a lot more from us in the future.
All right, well, best of luck.
All right.
Steve Olsen and Tom Zink, your winners here tonight on Starcage 85.
In our next match, we have Baron Ron Rashke and Buck Rock and Roll Zumwalt taking on Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal.
Now, coming up next, it should be a dandy. The team of Rock and Roll Buck Zumwalt, his partner Baron Von Rashke. They'll be facing the team of Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal. All right, very quickly, Baron Von Rashke, I know you've got a score to settle. You're on the lookout for Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin.
That's just Ricky. He's going to pay for what he did to my eye. I tell you that, right now is our chance. Buck Zumwalt's got a score to settle.
And yes, Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal are the heels here. Buck Zumwalt is a piece of shit. I think everyone, if you don't know why Buck Zumwalt is a piece of shit, you can Google Buck Zumwalt for that. And Baron Von Rashke being a Nazi, but an all-around nice guy, though. Like, he's awesome. But it's 1985, not 1965, and
hey, you know what? You can't beat a good babyface goose stepping around the ring.
That's weird.
Wow. Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah, that was again the post-match interview highlight for me. Von Rashke goes into the crowd and grabs a kid and shakes him around like, isn't he excited? It's like, oh boy. But I will say this: I think Jimmy Garvin was one of the more underutilized stars of the late '80s, early '90s. I mean, he did well in WCW. But I
think shit falls apart for Jimmy once he joins the Freebirds.
You think so?
Yeah, that Freebird run is not good. Like 89 Freebirds with Jimmy and
yeah.
It's not good. But prior to that, when he's with Precious and all that kind of good stuff, and even the stuff he did when he was with Ronnie and stuff like that, even that feud with Magnum right before Magnum's wreck was really good. But I think once we get to like 89, 90, 91, it's a rough time for Jimmy Garvin.
I liked him with Flair. That feud was a fun feud to watch, and I think his cage match against Flair with a date with Precious on the line was really well done. That's great. I actually used to copy his blown knee spot with a leapfrog.
Yeah,
I used to do that as a spot just to sell the leg because I flexible, but like I remember watching that match live, thinking he's gonna win. There's no way Flair's gonna win, and then Flair won. Anyways,
It's funny that Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal are the guys who finally defeated the Road Warriors.
Oh my God!
Yeah, they beat them for the belts. There's a whole story. We'll get into that at some point. The whole story with what they did on that match to give Jimmy and Steve Regal the belt. But again, it's a fun match. I mean, it's a very 1985 AWA match for sure. Again, this show does have star power, and the crowd really seemed to be into it, regardless of how terrible it is all around.
All right, wrestling fans, now coming up next, a tremendous battle. On one side, big bad Bobby Duncombe, the cowboy out of Texas, his partner, British Empire champion Billy Robinson. And they will be going up against quite a tag team. We call it the North Dakota, the Northwest Connection. Olympic great Brad Rangans and his partner, Bob Backlund. Now, you talk about two gentlemen with very similar backgrounds. Bob Backlund out of Princeton, Minnesota. Brad Rangans out of Appleton, Minnesota. Both men attended North Dakota State University. Both men out of North Dakota State became NCAA wrestling champions. Now, this past year, as many of you people know, Brad Rangans took a leave of absence from professional wrestling, went out to Los Angeles to serve as the assistant coach on the United States Greco-Roman Olympic team. What you fans may not know is Bob Backlund also took time out of professional wrestling, went out and helped Brad coach that team in Los Angeles, The result was the United States had their highest finish ever in Greco-Roman Olympic wrestling, winning their first medals, 2 golds, a silver, and a bronze, 4 medals in all. That gives you an idea of the dedication that Brad Rangens and Bob Backlund have. Now let's go up to the ring and get this next battle as part of Starcage 85 underway.
The big main events coming up later on tonight. Don't forget, we'll have the AWA World Tag Team Championship match right here. Also, that big cage match. And much more action as well. All tag teams here at the Civic Center. And here we go with more. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing now in the ring, weighing 256 pounds, from Kansas City, Missouri, Butch Reed. And his tag team partner, ladies and gentlemen, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, weighing 241 pounds, he is the America's heavyweight champion, Larry Zbyszko. NCAA college champions. They were outstanding high school athletes and now some of the most popular professional wrestlers in the country. Both members and, in fact, assistant coaches of the 1984 U.S. Olympic Greco-Roman wrestling team. From Appleton, Minnesota, from Princeton, Minnesota, with a combined weight of 479 pounds, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Rangens and Bob Backlund. Rangens and Backlund. This match, one fall, a 30-minute time limit. And here we go.
Another thing that I found weird on this show is when, like, Backlund's in from the WWF. Now, Backlund had left the WWF probably a year prior to this. And it's very weird to me because they kept on referring him to as the real world champion. Like, oh, the Iron Sheik never beat him and shit. Like, Hulk Hogan's an illegitimate champion and all that other shit, right? But it's weird having Backlund here again. We're about to, I believe they about to start. They already started off with the Pro Wrestling USA stuff. You have Backlund and Brad Rangens here, which is, you know, a pretty cool tag team. You have Butch Reed making a rare appearance here in the AWA. Not here very long. He would go back to Mid-South not too long after this, and they probably could have done more with Butch. I think a Butch Reed, Rick Martel main event would have done exceedingly well. They chose not to go down that route because it's the AWA. And he's teaming up with Larry Zbyszko. And, you know, Larry and Bob have like some history there. So, you know, they're really kind of hitting this like 1980 WWF shit like really hard in the AWA during this time. Like, if they could have got Bruno in, they probably would have. But I don't think anyone in Minnesota would have known who Bruno was all that much. Like, I think it's fair to say that Vern Gagne was a bigger star than Bruno Sammartino in Minnesota. I think that's fair. But, you know, this, again, another you know, okay-looking match. It's a little rough. Rangens is not necessarily the best worker. He's probably a better trainer. Backlund does Backlund stuff. Zbyszko is doing Zbyszko stuff, and it reads like, when can I go back to Louisiana?
Yeah.
But Backlund and Rangens get the win here because this is an all babyface show. All the babyfaces go over here. But yeah, they keep on pushing this narrative that like Backlund's the real WWF champion, and there's this poll that we took in New York, and the people in New York still consider him world champion, and it's like, but you have a world champion. His name is Rick Martel. What are you doing? Like, because common sense would tell you, okay, you have this guy who has a claim on the world title. You put him in with Martel and have Martel beat him. and that gives Martel more credibility, right? That's what you would do. That's the theory, at least. If you're gonna go all the way, go all the way. Give fucking Backlund a belt. Just here's this belt. Just say he's the world champion. Don't obviously you can't use WWF, but give him a belt. Say this guy is the real world champion. Again, Backlund should have been heel in '84. You see how well he did with it in '94, and he didn't want to turn at the time because those guys were all weird. They didn't believe in turns like that, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this match, Matt?
I always look at Butch Reed and go, man, he was so good as Doom, and he was so good before. His WWE run, I wish was a little more.
He could have been NWA World Champion. He's on a short list of guys that you can put the AWA belt on too. Give you some credibility because he's a former football player, and they always kind of book him as like he's from the hood. Like, oh, we're gonna have Butch Reed in a ghetto street fight and that kind of stuff, and that's the, if it's playing on stereotypes, whatever, but it's still kind of lame as fuck. And if you ever met Butch Reed in person, motherfucker's a cowboy, so he does rodeo and stuff, and he always wearing his cowboy hat. You kind of maybe want to push that instead, because that's who he really is. So if he's credible, former Kansas City Chief. He played football. Again, someone you could definitely put the belt on.
I always feel when you go to somebody who's athletic background, that adds an automatic air of credibility. And it's a good segue into like, well, obviously he's using those skills to over to the wrestling biz, and again, I think lots of missed opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Up next, we have a promo from Sergeant Slaughter, vowing that he's going to fight fire with fire. Thanks, Sarge.
Now, earlier I had the opportunity to talk to Sergeant Slaughter. Take a look at that right now. Sarge, tonight, inside of this very cage, you and Jerry Blackwell at long last have got the masked superstar King Tonga and the Sheik. And Sarge, there's absolutely no escape.
That's right. As I grew up in this beautiful state of Minnesota, I played many, many high school sports. And when you went into the locker room, the coach told you, today, boys, we're going to train for a certain team. We're going to have everybody act like that other team. And we're going to play their way. Well, let me tell you, Sheik, Matt Superstar, and King Tonga, Jerry Blackwell and I have been doing just that. When you train for a cage match, you go into a cage and you train for it. You see this notch on my head? That's Jerry Blackwell ran me into the cage. We put the cage up beside the barracks, and we were fighting it for the last 2 days. Now, Jerry Blackwell's not here for one reason, and that reason is because he is so wild that when he came on here, he'd probably say something and have this whole station taken off the air. But I can tell you one thing, Sheik. He's real happy because he's finally got you in a cage. And there's nowhere for you to go, Sheik. Nowhere for you to go. And if you can't stand blood, you better not be there.
Again, we're still about his debut on G.I. Joe is not until, I believe, '86, though. At least the cartoon. I know the figure probably came out earlier, though. But, he's it's funny, too, because when they bring in Slaughter, he's clearly the number 2 babyface in the WWF. Like, that's a big get for them. If you go back and watch 1984 WWF, Slaughter and Sheik is carrying the promotion overall. Hogan's not even really in a feud or an angle for the majority of 1984. The 2 angles that are really, really setting the WWF on fire is Slaughter taking on Sheik and Piper and Snuka. And we have Hogan basically as support. Don't forget that Hulk Hogan spent a lot of time in Japan in 1984. A lot. So he's only there part-time. The next match is the Tonga Kid, who's probably like 12 years old, legitimately, at this time, because he started really young. And Jumpin', Jim Brunzell taking on Big Bad Bobby Duncombe and Billy Robinson. Now, Billy Robinson, this will be a theme on the show, is 47 years old, and Duncombe is 41. And one of the interesting things, if you look at the current WWE roster, you'll see wrestlers that are in their early 40s, mid 40s, and late 40s on top. And they don't feel as old as Nick Bockwinkel, Vern Gagne, and fucking Billy Robinson. And I wonder why that is. You remember, like in the early 90s, they kept on trying to retire Flair, and he's like 40 years old?
Yes.
Like, Hogan's too old. He's 38. But you see, like, how wrestlers are now, like, their careers don't really get going until, like, they're 35. Look at Jericho. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on Tonga Kid and Jim Brunzell as a tag team? It's an odd fit, I guess. And kind of the return of Bobby Duncombe here, a face from the past.
Again, Tonga Kid's funny looking, like, oh, that guy's going to go places. Jim Brunzell, pre-Killer Bees. Billy Robinson, I enjoyed, watch his work. I've not seen a lot of his stuff. But overall, I think, again, there's a lot of spots in here, and this goes for all the matches, oddly enough, that, like, tag teams could emulate and use because they're good spots. Like, often, technically, these matches are well done or, effective. There's a couple spots, like, where, like Buck Zumoff's a shit, so whatever.
Yeah.
But this match was good. It was fine what it was. Again, I often think was this a pay-per-view quality match, or was this more like you could see it like at your local armory, So.
No, it's definitely interesting. I mean, they're going. I think, based on the reaction the Tonga Kid got on this show, which is really good. I think they're trying to push Tonga Kid as their version of Superfly Snuka. He does the splash and everything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if people maybe who are not educated to professional wrestling in the crowd thought that was Snuka.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can see that.
I mean, that could be definitely a possibility here. Up next, we get a promo from Paul Ellering and the Road Warriors.
Attack. That's right. Oh, yes, the Henning. Larry Henning, 330 pounds. The axe has put many people out. Kurt Henning, you proved to the people of Minnesota that you're a great wrestler. But let me tell you something. What makes them the best of all the teams we face is they have an intangible. It's father and son. It's blood. Well, let me tell you something, Larry Henning. How are you going to feel when we got your punk kid down on the mat, bleeding like a stuck rat? Tell him, Hawk.
Oh, it's impersonation time. You see if you can guess. I'll do the impersonation. Well, I'm cute. My dad's big. We got the speed. We got the size. And it's going to be a total war. And,
it's the Henning!
It's the Hennings. Yeah, it's the Hennings. Boy, have they got a problem. They got the Road Warriors in St. Paul. Boy, are you sitting in a tough position. Tell them, big man.
Hey, first one little thing I want to clear up here. That Nappin' Donuts. Let me show you something, Nappin' Donuts. Take a look at that. And take a look at that. That's all I got to say to those two little weasels. Friends of yours, Nick. See, you look like that. You can't look like this ever. Let me tell you something, Henning. St. Paul, this has been coming down for a long time. Larry Henning's out to hurt us. Kurt Henning's out to wrestle us. Everybody wants to beat the Road Warriors. But the big thing is, St. Paul, you know as well as I do, besides the cage match, besides Vern Gagne coming out of retirement, there ain't nothing better in St. Paul than the Warriors, and you know it.
Hey, Resnick, have yourself a...
They talk shit about the Hennings, but they made sure to put over Vern Gagne. Again, this you get the Road Warriors singing here in this music video. There's going to be a Rumble tonight.
There is.
The Road Warriors. That's right. Do you think it's ever a good idea to take your top heelish tag team and have him sing songs?
Well, Elias, you can walk with him.
I always try to do that shit. It's like, and it's not like, the musical stylings of Hawk and Animal are like, do we want the Road Warriors singing like that? Like, it's not a Honky or Elias or even a Jeff Jarrett. These are the fucking Road Warriors. They're supposed to be killers, and they're singing songs. So, I do find that relatively problematic. But, bless their hearts. They got a single out of it.
Mm.
Up next is Greg and Vern Gagne taking on Nick Bockwinkel and Mr. Saito. Now, Vern is 59 years old, but he doesn't look bad. People forget, like, Greg's like 10 years in, so he's very much a veteran here. Bockwinkel is Bockwinkel. I think if Bockwinkel would have came along a little bit later, he would have been rival to Flair in terms of how we remember him. Now, Vern is still over because the crowd is clearly chanting, "We want Vern."
Right.
I think people underestimate. I mean, we all have our Vern Gagne kind of like jokes or stuff, but you have to realize there was a point in time where Vern Gagne may have been the most recognizable wrestler in the United States, maybe the second and a little bit behind Lou Thez, and in some cases more recognizable than Thez, because don't forget that Vern Gagne was on that Chicago nationwide TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the 50s. Yeah. Like, Vern Gagne was the first wrestler to have commercials and sponsorships, and he did, advertisements and stuff like that. He won. The reason why the AWAs existed is because he was a big star, and he wanted a run with the NWA World Title, and he did not get it. So he created his own. So that's the story of Vern Gagne. Now, you take the biggest star, one of the biggest stars in the world at that time, and he's gonna make his own promotion. It sounds very familiar to me. But Vern and his return, again, Vern is over, but again, they keep on coming up with these scenarios where the old guy saves the young guy, which in reality, it probably should have went the other way around. Bockwinkel and Saito had the big attack on Vern, and Greg makes the comeback because Greg is going to be the one on all your house shows and all your shows, and you got to make sure that, he is where he's supposed to be in terms of where he is on the roster. So, to me, I'm of the feeling that they went the other way on this. Again, Vern is booked like a fucking road warrior here, for fuck's sake, and I think he needed to sell a little bit more. But again, he's still extremely over, and that comes to an issue. Is what do you do when you have these guys who are over like that? What do you do with a 60-year-old Vern Gagne in reality? So, Matt, what are your thoughts?
Again, I get that he's popular, but I think one of the things that Vern didn't do, and it's something that I think has haunted wrestling since the earliest days, is he didn't pass the torch. Not effectively.
You think Greg should have got that run as world champion?
Yeah, and Greg, they should have known his limitations. Like, I always feel like Greg could have been like he was towards the end, where he was a commentator and kind of like
he was a booker,
right? But he could have done the thing of set himself up as the intermediary, heel coming up, goes after something, he gets involved, they have a match. Greg either gets beat up or whatever, but like he goes over Greg as a stepping stone. Because Greg was a TV champion for a while. He was a tag champion for a while.
Never won the big one, though.
The dude looked like he needed a sandwich every time you saw him, like when in the ring. It was like, oh my god, he looks like the accounting teacher getting in the ring. And I imagine the pressure must have been immense from his father to be like, not screw up. But I love the videos of Greg where he talks about random things. Like,
well, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. Crazy shit that Greg Gagne says.
Yeah.
This is a segment that we do every couple episodes. But I think I almost wouldn't put Greg with Vern. I would have put someone else with Vern in that spot here to get the next superstar babyface over. But they're also very scared because they feel anyone that they push that they don't have under their control is going to leave for the WWF as well.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind also. So every time they would push a new star, Rick Martel, Kurt Hennig, they would go. So they have to be like kind of very careful with that. Or you can just put them on their contract and pay them money, but that goes without saying, I guess. Up next, we have the AWA World Tag Team Champions, the Road Warriors, taking on Kurt and Larry, the Axe Hennig. Now, the Axe is looking pretty fucking menacing for a 49-year-old, I must say. Again, they did this angle on TV where the Warriors beat Kurt Bloody on TV, and Larry came and made the save. Again, another older guy coming to save the younger guy kind of scenario where probably in reality it should be the other way around. The interesting, it's a really good match. I do like this match. I will love to see the ending. It ended in a double DQ. But the version that most people have of this show, like what happens from time to time when you have these tapes that are taped, this footage that's taped off of TV, stuff gets fucked up and people tape over shit by accident, and that's what happened here. And instead of the finish of the Kurt Hennig, Larry Hennig Road Warriors match, we get a video from the stars of the AWA beating up jobbers to Prince Let's Go Crazy, which is really interesting and fun. And if I would put that entire video up if I would get dinged for fucking copyright infringement, but I would get killed and it would take my channel down. But again, obviously you're probably not going to put the belt on the Hennigs at this point. But again, you have Kurt here, who's promised to be a star. He kind of really needs that push here. Should be having matches for Martel, but that's neither here or there at this point. And then in our main event, we have a steel cage match with Sergeant Slaughter, Jerry Crusher Backwell, taking on the Mass Superstar. That's right, the Mass Superstar, King Tonga Haku, and Sheik Agna Alcacay. Again, this is another it's a cool match because I like the cage, and it's a handicap match in the cage, and this is definitely the best match on the card by far. Again, Slaughter is still pretty athletic here, although he's rapidly, his prime is rapidly coming to a close. But I think overall, you have Saito in there. You have Haku. These are some of the toughest dudes on the fucking planet. Saito would go to jail not too long after this, and Haku would he bites people's noses off. So
yeah.
And I do like Jerry Blackwell. I think Jerry Blackwell is very underrated, and maybe some people get him confused with Norman and Lunatic, but Blackwell was very over as a babyface coming off that Hogan feud that they had in '83. And then when they made the change and brought in Brody, I thought that was a lot of fun. You probably could have got a little bit more out of Blackwell. He never had that run in WWF.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he could have been a nice little monster heel for Hogan or a Hogan buddy, much like Typhoon. He's probably a better worker than Uncle Fred. I would say that. But I think overall, this is a 1985 show. I had some grudge matches on it. Had some angle matches. From the looks, the crowd is good. The crowd is vocal. The crowd is hot. AWA is not dead by a long shot. And I think a lot of people use the narrative that Hulk Hogan left, Jesse Ventura left, Bobby Heenan left, and then fucking AWA was all over for them. But that's necessarily the case. Martel did pretty well as AWA champion. 85 was a pretty good year. They had the action figures out. The Pro Wrestling USA was probably a waste of time and money. They probably should have focused on their own guys and bringing in new talent for that. But I think, overall, I think the production of the show was not the best. I think that's something they really need to look into. The way, they mic the crowd and the music and the commentary is something they probably should have. There's something they probably should have kept in front of mind and really try to upgrade that production, because the only way you can compete with Vince is that you try to beat him on production.
Right. Because
you don't want your show looking like a piece of shit. And that's the thing about the AWA. They never really upgraded the production. So if you look at a 1985 show and a 1987 show, minus the graphics on it, they look pretty much the same. Yeah. So that is Starcage 85. I would tell everyone to go check it out, but this show is kind of hard to find. Like I said, if you want to get a feel for it, they do have like 19 minutes of the main event on YouTube, so you can go ahead and check that out. But they have the music videos, so they're going in that direction, which is not far off. And MTV is still very huge at this time. No celebrities again. This is right around WrestleMania time. So WrestleMania was probably like 20 days before this, March 31st, 1985. So you're about a month out, a month after WrestleMania, and this is kind of the show you put out there with no celebrities and that kind of stuff. But again, what are you gonna do? This is still the name is kind of fucked though.
Yeah,
because it invokes like, is this Starcade? Starcage?
Like it's the dollar store of pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's what it comes across as Bush League for sure, at least in the name. But I think the overall show, I would love to see this show live. It looks like a really fun show to go to live. It's just the production is not the greatest. And I think that's what it comes down to here. So, Matt, speaking of Greg Gagne, silly things that Greg Gagne says. Greg Gagne claims that in 1991, the AWA was going to bring back Hulk Hogan, the $6 million contract, and he was going to get on WGN and get a CBS special. But that didn't come to pass due to a local strike at the at Tribune. I guess it wasn't clear what the clip is that they were going to sell the AWA to the Tribune Company, which is the big newspaper conglomerate out of Chicago.
Right.
They own WGN. I think they own a couple other things as well. So that wasn't necessarily clear that they were going to sell the AWA to Tribune, and Tribune was going to pay Hulk Hogan $6 million to come in. That sounds ridiculous. Like WWF champion Hulk Hogan, 1991. You're bringing him back to the AWA. Would Hogan even go back? He probably would for the $6 million. It sounds on its face that it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you look into it, though, this is another thing. Greg is not necessarily. He's not lying. I don't know about that $6 million figure. But if you look into it, was there a writer's strike at the Tribune, Chicago Tribune? No, there wasn't a writer's strike in 1991.
Right.
There was a writer's strike at the Daily News, which the Tribune Company owned in New York City. So that's not wrong, and he could have got his wires crossed with that, and that's the reason why they didn't want to do the deal with the AWA. The timeline doesn't necessarily fit well because by 1991, AWA is basically dead. Like they're not running shows anymore. Would Hulk Hogan help a dead AWA in 1991?
I think he could have had a big impact if he gone there, but again, it depends. If you, again, if you go there and your production levels are terrible, he probably. I mean, it could have been. Let's give the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say Greg was right. Maybe Hogan went, well, what you got? Let's see what you got, brother. And he showed him like a reel of like the Road Warriors singing, we're gonna rumble tonight.
Team Challenge Series.
Yeah.
I think now if Greg made it clear that the Tribune Company was interested in reviving the AWA and bringing Hogan in, I think that's probably they probably had conversations. They probably asked the questions, hey, could you get Hogan? And I'm like, if you pay Hogan enough money, he'll do anything. I don't know what his contract status is in 1991. He does leave to shoot Suburban. No, he already shot Suburban Commando. He's basically there for the entire year of 1991. He doesn't leave until 1992 when he goes to shoot Mr. Nanny. But again, it's not one of those things that it's reported in the dirt sheets at the time that maybe Hogan's looking to get some leverage on Vince to renegotiate his deal, which I can see Hogan. Hey, brother, Vern offered me $6 million. What are you gonna do for me, Vince? Type deal here. maybe get a bigger cut of merchandising, or get a better percentage on action figures, or even get a bigger guarantee moving forward. That 100% could have happened. Could Hulk Hogan use the AWA for leverage to negotiate with Vince? Yeah, but I don't think Vince really took that serious because they're barely kind of on TV and they're doing reruns and they're not running house shows. They're pretty much dead. So in terms of crazy things that Greg Gagne says, yeah, this is a little bit out there. It sounds ridiculous. Again, it's just when sometimes Greg says these things, they're like, oh, this is fucking insane. Like, that's ridiculous. When you look into it, I'm like, he's not lying. Like, I don't think Greg Gagne is a liar. I think he's telling the truth. Now, some of the events may be kind of like, oh, well, you know, it's 30 years at this point. You know what I mean? So maybe some of the timelines are skewed, and maybe some of the conversations. But I think there might have been interest. You know, they could have definitely went to the Tribune Company, asked them like, hey, would you want to have Hulk Hogan on WGN? And they probably like, yeah, sure, can you get him? Oh, yeah, we'll go talk to Hulk, see what happens.
Right. You know, and I could just, if you know, play the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, he was interested, but then I think he probably saw like two things: one, their production values, and two, the roster. And like, roster. You know, who am I working off of? Greg? You bringing Vern? Like, you know, what am I doing here?
It probably would have been 1991. There's not a lot of guys out there unless he takes someone with him. Now, if you have a jump where he's going to take like Earthquake and Boss Man and stuff like that, that's a different story. But I think possible Hogan opponents outside of WWF in 1991, unless you're going to bring in a WCW type guy, maybe Elegante. Andre's not in Baba. You don't bring in Baba to fight Hogan. Dr. D. Davis Schultz.
I could see. Honestly, I think if it was to really happen, it would have been like you said, him and his buddies. He would have brought in Beefcake and those kind of guys. You know, Jimmy Hart. You know, maybe you start small, him and Beefcake, and have them dominating. They're tag champs, and Hogan wins the belt, and their tag, and and then have Beefcake turn on him because he wants the belt.
Would you give Hogan a percentage of the company to come in? You give him ownership. You give him an ownership stake.
Sure, if you're that desperate, you make the big play. You make.
You're gonna die.
Yeah, go out swinging.
I was like, oh, we're gonna give Hulk come in and take 45% of the AWA, and who do you want to bring in? And you could be the booker.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wonder what a 1991 Hulk Hogan booked AWA would have looked like. I won't talk to Terry. So like, if you can book the AWA, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, we're gonna be Beefcake, and we're gonna bring in Mr. T, and we're gonna bring in
Bundy.
Kamala, Bundy's money, Saito probably does like, we get Inoki in here. But like, well, what about this? Like, 1991, Hogan goes to AWA. The Savage follow. He's followed them to WCW, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
And you brought 1991. Hey, I'm retired. Randy Savage comes out of retirement to go to the AWA. Flair, not super happy in WCW in 1991.
Right.
Hogan, maybe he meets up with Hogan and Piper and Savage in the AWA with Hogan as the booker. Oh boy, Hogan's going over, but you give it a play here where you get that Tribune money. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. Hogan's going to always have creative control. That's the way it works. It doesn't work for me, brother. And it makes me think that more people in professional wrestling today should try that tactic. Because a lot of guys, get ruined by bad creative. And a lot of people will talk about, not to get too far deep into modern wrestling, because There's not too much to be happy about. But a lot of people talk about Matt Riddle. Now, Matt Riddle just recently was drafted to SmackDown. And Matt Riddle has all the tools.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good look. He's good in the ring. He has charisma. He's decent on a promo. You know, he has all the tools to be a top guy. But to be the top guy in 2020, you have to have the ability to overcome bad creative. And that's what we don't know about him.
Yeah.
One way or another. Either you make someone's shitty idea work, or you're like Hogan and be like, doesn't work for me, brother. And you'd be like, doesn't work for me, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, a lot of these guys, a lot of people give them shit, but these guys had to protect themselves because a promoter will fucking beat you into the fucking ground.
Here's the thing I think about, though, as far as, like, the AEW and their power, right? I want to say power or their leverage, if you will. If I'm Matt Riddle and you say, okay, fine, release me. I'll take 6 months off. I'll smoke weed, and I'll come back and I'll be an AEW star. Or you can give me let me do the promo I want to do. Like, play hardball, because eventually they're going to get to a point where they have to recognize some of the future stars are because they haven't done it in the past. They've waited. I mean, I like Edge. I like Randy Orton, but this whole greatest wrestling match ever thing is...
Yeah, it's a bit rough.
It's comical. And, really, I think Edge and Randy had their match. They did that stuff. It's good. Move on.
I agree. I mean, I want to say that the wrestlers of yesteryears definitely had more. I'm not even going to use the word leverage, but they didn't give a fuck. They ain't no fucking 2020 version of Bruiser Brody.
Nope.
There's no 2020 version of Duel the Butcher. There's no 2020 version of Terry Funk. You know, these guys would often say, "Nah, I'm not doing that." Yeah. And then the promoters were like, "Oh, like they ain't scared. Vince ain't scared of none of these guys." You know, walking out or like, "Hey, like Brody used to fucking just fucking sit in the middle of the ring," and like, "Nope, I'm not doing anything." You know what I mean? Like, you can't fuck with these guys. You know, if you give them their money, don't have to do anything stupid, they'll be fine. If you have them do stupid shit and you don't pay them their money, they're gonna be a problem. But now guys just fucking eat that shit, and then 20 of them get released to the shot. So you might as well just say no. I'm not doing that. Doesn't work for me, brother.
Yep.
All right, guys, so we are officially out of time. So for Matt Riley, I'm Alex G. Have a good night.
Star just got out of it. Ken, if he'd come off the top of that cage, we might have had to bury the Masked Superstar. Oh, tremendous face-first smash into the screen. Right into those intertwined steel meshes. Now here comes King Tonga, working on the battered Sergeant Slaughter. Furious King Tonga. Oh, now he's going to try to rip open the... Oh, no, look at this. He's going to try to rip open the forehead of Sergeant Slaughter. King Tonga, the Sheik got too far in the wrong territory and chased back by Jerry Blackwell. The Sarge face first, and now the Sarge is bleeding. You saw King Tonga try to rip open his forehead with his teeth and then face first into the screen. Now, wait a minute. Oh, he's got him. Oh! Here's the cover by King Tonga. Kenny J for the count. 1, 2. Oh, and the Sarge just threw King Tonga off. The slap tag. He didn't kick out. He threw him off, Doug. Masked Superstar Sergeant Slaughter. Clothesline. Oh, what a blast. Here's the cover by the Superstar. 1, 2. And again, the Sarge out. Someone yells USA. That's Jerry Blackwell, USA to the fans. Meanwhile, you can see the wrist lock put on by the Masked Superstar on Sergeant Slaughter. The Sarge trying to grab that mask. Look at that. The Sarge, in his pain, blinded with blood, is still trying to get that mask off the face of the Superstar. No one's ever been able to do it. Oh, it's a little bit off. He got it up over the chin anyway, but the Superstar now puts it back on. Here's the Sheik with that cast again. Sheik adding on LKC, I think Ken is fast become one of the most despicable men in the history of professional wrestling. And money, well, money obviously can buy almost everything, although so far it's not bought him any titles.
I'll tell you, after tonight, Doug, I would say the Sheik may be second to Nick Bockwinkel.
That's right. Bockwinkel and the Sheik. How much more are they going to be allowed to do? I don't know. Still hoping that Bergagne's all right down in the locker room. Now, Sergeant Slaughter. Groggy in a neutral corner. Sheik heading on LKC with a cast, pounding away on him. Oh, face first into the cage. Sergeant Slaughter on his knees. The Sheik happy to be in there while the man is groggy and down at a disadvantage, closing in. And again using the cast, but the Sarge gamely fighting back. What a war. Now the Sheik face first into the cage. The Sheik goes face first into the crisscross steel mix. Here's the tag, and here's Jerry Blackwell, covered with blood, fuming. Look at Jerry. He says, now I've got you. Look at Jerry Blackwell. The Sheik. Face first to the cage again. The Sheik's worst nightmare. Here it comes at full speed. Oh, the entire ring moved right in front of us, Ken. Incredible. Blackwell. Oh, and he came down with a power slam. But the Superstar breaks it up. On the count of one, the Sarge and the Superstar, King Tonga, they battle away.
Look at Jerry Blackwell in the far corner, Doug. He's trying to get up on that top rope to come down on the Sheik. 472 pounds. Oh! And the Sarge just leveled him at the end. It's over. They got it. The Sarge took care of. Incredible. I don't believe it. The Sarge took care of.
And it's been a long, tough road. But Edna Casey, I want to know what it feels like for 468 pounds to come off the damn top rope. I want to know exactly what it feels like. So you let me know. I tell you, y'all throwing me into the cage, y'all beating on me, doing anything you want, I didn't care. Because I knew I had a partner that we could take 3 men. And that's exactly what we done. We said, get them in a cage and we'll beat them. And we beat them. And that's all I got to say.
I'll tell you, Sergeant Slaughter, first off, congratulations. Sarge, in your entire career, whatever you said you were going to do, you've gone out and done it. You've backed it up 100%. Tonight was certainly no different.
Well, that's what America has always done. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. And we proved, not only to the Sheik, not only to his 2 bums, but we proved it to ourselves and the whole place, the whole United States. We proved that America is number 1, always will be number 1, and always has been number 1. Who's number 1? Yeah, USA. Terry and I have been training a long time for this. We declared war on the Sheik and his gang, and we knew that there would be some tough battles, and we lost a few, we won a few. But when it came down to the final war, the final battlefield in the steel cage, Jerry Blackwell and I were prepared. We were prepared. We knew when we came in this ring, we had to win. That's all there was to it. We had to win, and nothing could stop us. I want to say this. I appreciate what you've done inside this ring. But what you've been doing to me, where you've been making me train, the way you've been making me run, I don't like it at all. You understand? You're not supposed to like it. I never said it would be easy. I never said it would be a bed of roses. This ain't no summer camp, Blackwell. This ain't no summer camp. There ain't nowhere to call for Mama, Daddy. When you're in a slaughter camp, when you're in Camp Cobra, there's only one thing to do, and that's do what I say, or you get out. And you did everything I said, and look what we did tonight. I don't care if you like me. I don't even care. Well, let me tell you, I don't like you. But we done what we said as a team. That's because we're Americans. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, red or purple. When it comes down to being Americans, you don't have to love each other. You just gotta fight together and be as one when the time comes. In other words, what you're saying is you gotta have respect. You gotta have the respect and you gotta have the heart. And you've got the guts.
All right, ladies ladies and gentlemen, indeed, Jerry Blackwell, Sergeant Slaughter.
Long hair on you, too.
Victorious here is part of Starcage 85.
Boy, you better have that haircut, Resnick.
Yes, sir.
What kind of salute is that? It ain't the Girl Scouts. Okay. Dismissed.
All right, there was Sergeant, the US of A.
Night of action. I don't believe in one night we've seen that much action start to finish. If you just can't get enough, and I don't blame you, this was a dandy. For your friends who are going to ask you about the action is on again. Tuesday night, 7:30. Call your local cable operator and be part of all the action again. This was an incredible night. Let's go back to Ken.
Age 85 had everything it promised, and then some. You saw what took place right in this very spot some time back. Nick Bockwinkel, Mr. Saito, without a doubt, the most despicable actions I have ever seen anywhere in professional wrestling.